Welcome to Product Coffee. My name's Jason Brett. We host this every Wednesday, except we won't be doing it for the next few Wednesdays because this is our last show of the season. We'll be back the second week of January. So we'll take the first week of January off and be back the second week of January with our whole new season and our whole new year. So, but today we're talking about tools of the trade. And this is just a town hall discussion on the product management tools, the software, the technologies that we use. And, every product manager, we all use Excel or Google Sheets to an extent, but there are a lot of new things that are coming available that are starting to make a splash on how we do our jobs. And there are some things that have been around that have had some great evolution. And we want to hear your thoughts on that today and just do a big roundup of what you find indispensable. So I'm going to start out by, I want to see if Moshe has joined us here yet. Neither Moshe nor Matt have made it yet. They'll be here. But I'm going to give the floor to just start this thing off. And they're not a sponsor. These are just some good friends of the product coffee community and the ProductCamp community, although they have sponsored some of our events in the past. We've got Matt Burris and Toli Shulman and here from CogBias. And at the very beginning of the call, Matt was telling us about QDisc and some of the evolutions that they've got coming in the next few weeks. But I want you guys to just take a moment, because with this age of generative AI and the work that's being done in that space, you guys are working on something that is, I think, really potentially transformative to the work that we have to do. And I would love you to introduce everybody to what you're doing and talk about the problems that you're solving and where you are right now for just maybe 2 minutes or so.
Sure. So I'm Matt Burris. I'm the CEO of CogBias AI, and really how this kind of came to be is Tully and I went through the Flashpoint Accelerator at Georgia Tech about 5 years ago. And the focus of that was understanding how cognitive bias and behavioral economics affect the customer discovery process and ultimately can destroy products, destroy startups, because you take the wrong lessons away. And the lessons we learned from that were fantastic, like how to minimize the impact of all these things so that we learn truths that are what we really should use as the foundation to build products on top of. And we took a lot of that insight, and as ChatGPT emerged on the scene, we realized that we could build an AI that would allow you to leverage a lot of this without learning the skill sets yourself. And learning the skill set, let's see, 80% of the cohort cried because the feedback sessions were that brutal. I was among them. Like it is not good. It is incredibly difficult to unlearn natural human behavior. We all make mistakes here. So what our platform does is, when you're going to head into customer discovery, you generally head in with a list of questions that you're planning to ask. You're probably going to ask some more as well, but you've planned it out. You put it into our platform, you hit analyze. It'll identify the cognitive biases that are showing up in that question that are going to influence the answers that you get. And it'll give you a couple of potential rephrases. And in fact, our next update, we're going to move from 1 rephrase to 6 that are also adjusted and really take into account the context of what you're trying to learn and who you're trying to talk to, assuming you give us that context. So the idea is you know how you're going to be influencing the answer. You can either adjust the question you ask or adjust how you review that answer so that you effectively have a much better 0 point and are taking much better insights away from that customer discovery. And the tool right now is free. We are going to turn on paid plans early next year in January. Anybody who signs up before we do that gets a free month. Unlimited usage. There's no restrictions. Go nuts.
What's the URL for that?
I will put it in the chat. It's also at cogbias.ai.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And I remember, I got my fingers into it very early on to kind of play around with the tool. And similar to you, I looked at, these are some really good questions I'm asking. And then found out that maybe they weren't so much. John, you've got your hand up. Jump in there.
Yes, and I'm just going to add on to what Matt was saying. This is not a problem that's exclusive to product management. It spans product marketing, it spans sales, pre-sales, customer success, any customer-facing functions. And what I can tell you just from my many years of doing training, our product knowledge as product managers is a good thing for a lot of what we do. It is a utter encumbrance when it comes to doing customer discovery. And I think, Matt, you've got a tool here that sort of gets right at the heart of this, because when we know too much about our products, our questions have inherent bias in them. And I always, I tell everyone I train, like, the hardest thing to do when you are doing customer discovery in any role is to do it as if your products and your company don't exist. And that's a really hard thing to do. So I think
Absolutely.
your tool will be a tremendous help to folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was interesting. We took, I think it was 150 plus standard customer discovery questions, ran it through the tool just to see what kind of biases would show up. Framing effect was in like 70 some odd percent, and confirmation bias was in like 62% of questions. That should scare everyone, right? Confirmation bias is like one of the worst things to show up in customer discovery. You're not learning anything. Like that's not good. But it's human nature, right? We all do it. Startup founders are probably the absolute worst, because we show up and go, isn't my product great? Well, you obviously should be saying yes, because otherwise you're going to absolutely like tear apart my heart. Like, you're not that bad a person, are you? So yeah, it's really difficult to see these things. I think the corollary we make is we're bad at seeing our own grammar mistakes, and we all have had decades of experience in trying to spot them. How easy is it to find your own cognitive biases and how you're affecting these questions when you probably have very little training and very little experience? They're invisible, and our tool helps make them visible, so you can make the decision on how you want to move forward.
Yep. And yeah, and I want to tell you guys, just everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, one of the things that I want to be really specific about is, while CogBias has sponsored some of our events in the past, they're not a Product Coffee regular sponsor. John Mansour with Product Management University is. We only take sponsorships from companies that we really believe in and support. It's not just anybody with a checkbook. John has been a supporter of the product management community for decades. When when I first came into product management, John was leading the Technology Association of Georgia Tag Product Management Society, and was one of the mentors that guided me in my career. And the education I've gotten from him has been tremendous. I met Matt through Product Coffee and some of his co-founders, and we've been kind of working together and talking about the opportunity to bring what he's doing into the product management world and learn through product managers and through product management. And they've been taking an amazing approach to solving a very real problem. And the same goes for all of our sponsors and the folks that we talk about and really position here on Product Coffee. So if you have any more questions about QDisc and Product Coffee, feel free to ask them now. But I also would like people to start raising their hands. And the question I want to put out there for you is, what is a new tool that you have tried or added to your product management practice, the work that you do that is helping you or maybe hindering you? I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Raise your hand if you've tried something new this year, and I'd love to hear about your experiences. Jerry, bring it on.
Yeah, I tried Reclaim.ai actually at your recommendation for calendar management, and I've been using the free plan this year. But I think now that they've introduced the scheduling assistant and that UI looks really good, I'm switching to, I'm going to pay for it next year. I'm going to drop my existing calendar management solution and our scheduling solution and go Reclaim all the way.
All right, that's awesome. Let me make sure that we get a referral program in place with them really fast. I'm a huge fan of Reclaim as well. I've been using it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. It does all kinds of things. It combines, if you use Google-based calendars, it will synchronize your calendars for you. But even more than that, you can set your task list in such a way that it will block time on your calendar for your critical tasks and move that time around to make room for appointments that you have. It lets you prioritize things so that you can make sure that you're blocking time and holding time steady for the most important things, and being flexible where you can be flexible. It's like having a scheduling assistant, a real human scheduling assistant managing your calendar all the time. And it integrates with your Google Calendar, it integrates with Slack, it integrates with most of the popular task management solutions like Google Tasks or Todoist, and many others. Can't recommend it enough. And they really do need to sponsor Product Coffee. Dustin. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Bo.
Yep.
Hang on just a second. Bo looked like he had a question.
Well, I was just going to add the ugly, and it sounds like everybody here knows how bad Jira is, but we also added Jira Align, and I swear it was 2 products that never worked well together. Lots of manual data movement between systems. So whatever. I don't know why so many people have Jira. It must be free or the cheapest one, but it is the worst one as well. So.
Yep. Go ahead. Dustin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask an addendum question.
Yeah.
Just because like I love the idea of Reclaim, but like for those of us on more like enterprise platforms, right? Like just, completely blocked off like Jira, Outlook, the Microsoft solution basically. I would love to hear like solutions of like things that kind of live, that don't have an integration with like Slack or Gmail or right, because like some of us don't have that choice.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know that Microsoft in a recent edition has introduced focus time in Outlook, which will block your calendar for you. I don't know if it moves it around as much, but I recall seeing something on the Reclaim site about being able to sync with Outlook, and I don't know if that's true or not. Jason, maybe you know.
I know they've had it on their roadmap for a long time. I haven't looked recently. They may have gotten that implemented. They're still, because of the controls that Outlook, that the Microsoft suite gives administrators, there still may be some approvals that would be necessary internally. But I know from experience that I've spoken with the CEO and the founder and the technical co-founder of Reclaim many, many times, and they are very good about jumping on the phone with IT teams and doing the right kind of discovery and making sure that they can demonstrate that their system is secure and can add and are committed to adding things to make sure that they can meet requirements. And I'll be honest with you, you can look at this company, and this is definitely one of those, and John and I have talked a lot of times about, is it a feature or is it a product? And they've got a lot of features, they got a lot of products. I will not be surprised to see Reclaim get acquired by somebody in the fairly near future. I'm such a fan. I would say go to bat for them in your internal organization. The transformative effect of the work of what they enable is just amazing on your day to day.
Allison, are you out there?
Yes.
I was just curious.
I'm
I recall you saying, and hopefully I'm not wrong about this, but I recall you saying that you use some kind of AI tool for building your slide deck for ProductCamp. And I would love to hear about that, because focusing more on content, I think, is much more important than, what is this? What do these slides look like?
Thank you for that setup, Matt, because I was just thinking about this in this conversation. I was like, I don't know. Are they ready for another shameless plug from me? So I got in on this tool definitely an early customer, and certainly have continued to use it. I will also disclose I am piloting co-pilot at my company, and we're a Microsoft shop, so I have all the bells and whistles of the things that Microsoft is trying to launch, and their integration for trying to here's an outline, make me a presentation deck is dumpster fire worthy in my experience. Again, I've also seen the promised land, so I was a little biased there, but I had a presentation this Monday with my stakeholders, and just a little bit of time, where we pointed, should we be in this right direction kind of conversation. Gave it a bulleted list in 3 minutes. I had visually, competent. I could have left that presentation and gone to, or left what they created and gone to a presentation, no hesitation. And it was like, I want to talk about X, Y, and Z, and it wasn't like sentences or, war and peace in terms of content. So we've all planned plenty of presentations and spent all the time futzing with the image or the color or the font. And this tool does it. It's called Gamma. I'll drop the link in the chat. And so I will say they added AI. They allow you to focus on the content. So, right, I'd care about what I was trying to say. I didn't have to think about what it needed to look like because I knew that they had that in check. You can take a single document, a web page. I actually had the presentation done, and that was like me adding details and links to Jira, that type of deal, in less than 2 hours from here's the timeline and then here's a finished product to send. So, and that's probably still a little bit long because I'm new with the organization and trying to make sure everything's just right. Scratches that OCD itch that I have sometimes. So I'll drop that link in there. It's been really transformational. I actually use it for all of my presentations. I did a couple of presentations at I pitched for ProductCamp. I had a virtual presentation that I had to give at a brewery with music in the background. I was able to pull it up on my phone and scroll through it and use it as my prompt in my notes. And then I spoke at Chicago camps this fall and used that same deck, or it was a different presentation, but the same format there. So it's been really helpful to kind of go on the fly and work through conversations. Thanks for setting that up, Matt.
Very well done. Feel free to raise your hand if you've got another one. And we can also, let's take a minute. I really do want to know, everybody loves to hate Jira. And, I have my own theories as to why that is. And I have my own theories and hypotheses that I know I'm not the only one to have voiced this in the past. But a lot of the reason I believe that the profession of product management exists is because business leaders in the organization have historically done a horrible job of helping engineers and the engineering teams, the development teams, get the information that they need in order to make good development decisions. So the notion, the Agile Manifesto came into being as a response to, too much time and too much distance between the customer and the engineering team. And we created the product owner role to help facilitate the communication and the insight between the customer. And Jerry's got his hand up. I'm gonna let you take over in just a minute because you are much more of an expert on this as mine. I've got opinions, you've got training. Jira is a tool that was created to manage engineering backlogs. It was a project management tool, and it created an interface point that engineers, I believe, were able to say, hey, if we can get product management to interact with our tool, with our favorite way of managing things, then we can get more information closer to the customer more easily. But Jerry, I want to hear your take.
Yeah, no, I was, and I've got opinions too. I don't know that I have. But from my time at version 1, version 1 kind of had that same trajectory as Jira in the early days. If you think back to like 2000, when all of these tools were kind of really coming into market. And one of the conversations I remember having with Robert, who was our CEO, was the fact that Atlassian really built a platform that developers could customize and you could install it on a machine under your desk. And I think that's one of the things that really helped them along the way, especially in the early days, was, you could write extensions to it and modify it, not not big modifications, but customizations that you could use in your business. And it kind of took off in that grassroots area, because a developer could put it in early days. It was, I think in the early days, it was free, if not cheap, like super cheap, enough that you didn't, as a developer, you didn't mind dropping $10 for a copy of it to run. So, and we really battled against it as a SaaS platform, and as a platform that was that did not offer as many extension points as Jira did. So,
yeah,
I guess I'm agreeing with you. adding some fuel to your fire.
Yep. I mean, and so the reason I kind of preface it with that is if we accept the fact that there was an engineering tool that engineering team, and somebody feel free to tell me you're wrong. If we accept the fact that there was an engineering management tool, that engineering team said, hey, can we get more collaboration from product management through this tool? Well, then if we're doing our job, that's customer discovery. There's a problem that we as a team can be solving and trying to help solve. Now, the budgets are controlled by engineering leadership, so that creates some complexity in that conversation. But there's a new tool that Jira released this year called Jira Product Discovery. And I really want to know, I have not looked at this tool. I want to know if anybody here has looked at, experimented with, or tried this tool. And while we look for some hands on that, Dustin, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to use the product discovery, but I was going to just say, like, I think a lot of it too is like, at least in the larger enterprises, like, we're coming from project management to product management. And so, we have multi-year contracts signed with Jira. And then I think I saw Drew was talking about on-prem was a big thing too, especially because like it's already customized, right? They're like, we already have this, like, why are we going to go to another solution? So I think it's kind of just inertia more than than anything else in a lot of ways, at least in my experience. So it'd be interesting to see like why people use Jira not from inertia.
Yeah, that's fair. I see, I'm going to put a friend on the spot here. I see, Beth White is here. And when we started adopting Jira at Silverpop or IBM and Acoustic, I know Beth invested a lot of time in, as a product manager, learning in and leaning in and learning to run her personal process, her personal product management process through that. And she tried to convince me to do so, and I just never did come along. But Beth, I wonder if you'd share some of your learnings from that experience.
Yeah, so we actually started out with version 1 and we converted over into Jira. I think from a product perspective, Jira as a tool has helped document the decisions that we made at the time. If I look at all of the benefits, why did we do those things, and really using it as a release management tool, honestly, with engineering, and using it as a historical document. Obviously, we have roadmaps, we have big thinking along the way, but it enabled us to really think about those small incremental value bits of work that we believed needed to happen at that given time in order to maintain things. It also enabled us to help really consider defects. What defects are we logging? How are we tracking them? That was a large part, just from a management perspective, from root cause analysis, and really kind of documenting what happened when, and being able to not just look at my own work, but looking at a larger organization and the breadth of what all the teams were working on and how does that work interact with my work. So Jason and I worked, Jason was the product manager for this large product we called programs at the time. I was on the data team. Our data team fueled all this information that needed to happen with programs. So how did that interrelate? How did that interact? And I could go in and I could see it was it enabled a lot of transparency. Now it was a whole lot of paperwork. It is not for it's one of those things, once you start it, you have to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
And even though, it was a lot, and in working with, engineering teams dispersed across the world, it allowed people to stare at words. But what are the words written down? Are the words valuable? How are we grooming this work? And every team kind of worked a little different. So it was interesting kind of manning multiple teams. And you're shifting gears all the time and you're shifting thoughts. So I would go from one engineering team to the 2 other engineering teams within a day. So what are the things that we're writing down, thinking about, grooming, documenting? So there's my good answer.
That's very, very robust. Thank you, Beth. And I see there's a little bit of commentary going on in the chat here that's pretty entertaining. It's all Jira, so all these variations of the Jira products are all Jira. John, I see you've got your hand up. Oh yeah, Bo, go ahead.
I was commenting to John Mansour's question of anybody like their tool, and I've used Rally, version 1, Jira, TFS, a handful of other tools, and they all have problems. So maybe solving it is not as easy as it should be, but I do think there's an opportunity for a lot of you entrepreneurial people on the call to get together with some product people and put together, follow any of the training and start at the top and go through a flow that both accomplishes tying things to goals and strategy all the way down to tasks, so it's bi-directional, as well as easy to use, and it's probably got to integrate to some engineering tool somewhere, but I don't know why engineering couldn't use it as well. And I think that's the problem, is I think engineering drives a lot of the Jira. In the beginning, it was a defect bug management tool.
Yeah, ticketing.
Yeah, we actually had a nice integration with AHA. And budgets are certainly interesting with Jira as to who it falls into. I know we really insisted on having some kind of documentation. And Atlassian's done a really good job with Confluence integrating with Jira. And so is AHA. AHA was another tool that really helped kind of align the tickets, the individual bits of work, into the broader scheme of things. So those were some other tools that we put in place. Those are the positive things, right? I could complain about all kinds of things with Jira.
Rajan and Matt, before we get to you, let me switch back over to John and see if he had anything else he wanted to add, and then we'll switch back to you guys.
So I think one of the things you were talking about me, John, right?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't want to cut anybody off. I think that the common denominator with all these tools that I've seen is they are inside out focused. And what I mean by that is we as product managers have to do more work for the tool than they're doing for us. And I think that's where, the difficulty in using them, I think this is where they come in. So, if I can, connect a couple of dots here, I think how we solve this, and because of where AI is right now, I think there's an enormous opportunity to solve this problem. If we can come up with a standardized way to do customer discovery and then let AI figure out, just tell us, what are my customers trying to accomplish? Why is it important? Why can't they get the right? Break it all down and then suggest to us what would be most valuable to customers based on what they're trying to accomplish. I think then we get a tool that starts working better for us. But I think the key is getting everyone to be very consistent in how they do customer discovery. That way you have a bunch of apples to apples conversations that something like an AI engine could synthesize and tell you, here's what's most important to the customers you serve, and actually help us do the work instead of us, doing all the things we have to do to take it from Excel to Jira to copy to AHA to this to that. It's crazy.
Yep. Thank you. And Rajan, you had jumped up here just a moment ago, and I took your hand down. You wanted to add in as well.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think not I think, I know at our company we use AI, AHA in Jira, and we're trying to integrate and all that good stuff, but it's still massive steps that we have to take in order to go from one to the other, right? And so the idea is that engineering is always like, you should just use Jira, buy the extensions and just use Jira. So product discovery was one that, we started to look at. I'm not sure where management was, but also, we're in AHA, right? We're doing more roadmaps. We're deep in AHA. We've got pivot views set up and all this great stuff. And, it takes, blood, sweat, and tears in order to maintain that, right? And so, it's not the greatest steps, but we're trying to maintain two tools. One was chosen by product, the other was chosen by engineering, of course. And the idea is, how do we come to that point where we have just one, or decide how we integrate both? And those steps haven't been really kind of taken, right? It's just like, hey, product wants this, engineering wants this tool. Okay, y'all gonna do what you want to do, but somebody's got to be the bridge, right? And it ends up being the product manager, right?
Right. Well, that's one of the tough things, is because you have to. The bridge is the right word. You have to create the integration point, and it takes a leader. And if the product manager can be the right kind of leader and do exactly what we're talking about, and hear the needs and resolve the needs and understand the jobs to be done, which is our job, right? And help to solve that problem. Then you can create some forward momentum. And I think that was one of the special things that happened at Silverpop and IBM with the 60-second business case, which we've taught here in some of our premium workshops here at Product Coffee as well, is we had that kind of common problem of helping the engineering team understand why we were making the decisions that we were making. And once we gave them a framework to really understand it, they let product management lead in that way, and kind of embrace that tool. Matt Bettina, excuse me. And then I want to pull Matt Green up here for a second.
Yeah, just a quick point on the tools. So I think what you have to ask yourself is, what are we trying to find out? What information do we need to better do our jobs? What capabilities does the tool have, or the tools have, that are already in our arsenal? And how can we perhaps use those to our advantage? Sometimes you're faced with a situation where, let's set aside the organizational friction. Tools are political, and they can be, at least. Everybody has their favorite, and we're going to talk about, well, we want to do this and that with it, and I want this tool, I want that tool. So, I mean, in our situation, we just set all that aside and looked at, okay, what do we have in our tool belt right now? Well, we've got this great, sort of tool that we're kind of using, Freshservice, for customer success and ticketing. So we got together with the customer success leader and another product manager and I, and figured out what information we wanted to know about our customers first. So set the tool aside, sit down at the table, start planning out what you want to know and how it's going to help you make better decisions. In this case, it was with respect to a legacy product with a number of problems and tickets. So how can we break down that information to better inform our release delivery strategy? And that's what we did. And it was painful, but ultimately, by understanding first what we wanted to know, what kind of data we wanted to collect and how we wanted to see it, we were able to then better utilize the tool. So I always encourage people first to step away from the tool and think about what you want to do, what kind of information do you want to know, and how can you better empower your team to operate. Once we broke through that barrier, that information has been so valuable. We created some really cool dashboards and put together some wonderful information that has helped us to battle the ongoing sort of legacy product monster that we're almost through and finished with here. So anyway, just food for thought.
Very good. Yeah, I think that summarizes it really well, or hits it really well. I want to not spend all of our time bashing Jira and what led us to Jira. I did see Matt Green talk a little bit in the chat. And for those of you who don't know Matt, Matt is one of the hosts of the Products for Product podcast and talked about using product discovery, Jira product discovery with mixed results. And so I would like to take just a quick moment. And Matt, if you could give us a 30 to 60 second kind of overview of what you've learned about that. And then I want to hit some other tools for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jason. So we started experimenting with product discovery recently as we use Confluence internally in Jira. So it works well with those things. But yeah, right now it's, we're working towards adopting it slowly but surely within the product team. So we have a current, like a roadmap. We're using like a roadmap with it, a bit of a Kanban approach. And then we're tracking like all ideas. So we kind of pump ideas into it. Then that kind of goes into a backlog. We do value scoring. We evaluate as a team. We plan. So we kind of have it all broken down, and it's helping us track the progress of these ideas into actual development. And then, if things pass the smell test, we actually go and build it, and then we maintain it. So it's serving as a bit of a repository for product ideas, feature requests, ultimately stuff we build. And then, we have roadmaps broken down by team. So overall, it's a cool tool because we're using Jira and Confluence, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily revolutionary. So it's not doing anything that, not making your team and process better. I think you ultimately have to have a process in place in order to utilize any kind of tool, especially these kind of things. So we're working towards building processes around making this better. We really want to adopt it because it does fit so well within our ecosystem of tools. So I'm really optimistic about what they're going to do with it. We've only been using it for a couple months now, and so I slowly but surely we're going to continue to use it and adopt it. So I'm excited about the path ahead.
Very good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody have any final questions or thoughts before we move off of Jira and hit some other tools that I saw listed in the chat here before we go for the day? All right, cool. Let's move on. What I want to do now is, Jerry, you listed a few tools in the chat, and I want to go back and just hear about, just if you'd spend a few seconds on just a couple of the tools that you've tried this year. I think part of the goal here today is to just let folks hear some names of some things that maybe they haven't heard and what value you got or didn't get out of them in just a quick hit. So I'm going to start with Jerry.
Oh gosh, I did throw a bunch out there. I'll tell you a couple. I'll call a couple out. ProdPad and Clubhouse as two of them. I had the pleasure this year of meeting the CEOs. It was purely coincidental. I happened to be involved in something and they were pulled in. And in both cases, I was super impressed with what they had to say and what they talked about and how they spoke about their products and the value they provided. Each of them had a unique take. The thing about ProdPad that stood out was the AI integration, the way they've integrated it to help product managers evaluate their roadmaps against customer demands and things like that was interesting. The thing that stood out with Clubhouse was they were doing some of the stuff that we dreamed of doing back in my version 1 days. So that was exciting. And also I had a chance to see Target Process and the leaps and bounds they have come over the past few years, which was impressive. And they were acquired this year by Aptio, which gets an integration into financial aspects, which CFOs enjoy. And I can't remember the other ones I tossed out there, Jason. If there was one in particular you saw that you wanted me to mention, call it out.
Clubhouse was one that I haven't encountered personally, and so that was the one that was one that I was wanting to hear a little bit about personally, but I don't know about others. So, anyone else? I'm trying to scan through the chat. I know we talked about ProdPad having some having some AI capabilities. I know Product Board has released some AI capabilities recently as well that might be helping. Matt, you just mentioned Double Loop. Tell me about that.
Honestly, I can't say much because I haven't used it, but I keep seeing it pop up on my feed. It looks like you can utilize it for both like proactive and reactive metrics tracking with respect to your products. So you can, plug in different goals and stuff that you have and then track how you're doing against those. Somehow I want to look into it more because it looks very interesting in terms of just getting the inputs and then seeing how those translate to your outcomes that you're trying to achieve, being able to monitor that stuff over time.
Cool. Any others that people have encountered this year? Manesh, you're talking about this. I haven't heard of it. Excel. Tell me about this.
What world are you living in? So
we keep trying to get away from it, but it keeps rearing its head. And
yep,
and there's a lot
exactly
you can do
the point. Yep, there's a lot. That's exactly the point. Product discovery from Jira, right? We tried to implement that. We laid it all out. We went through the whole workflow, set it all up for them. And 6 months down the line, guess what they're using? They're exporting all the items into Excel and then working through the Excel document to figure out what they need to prioritize and what's where and what's what. So I think it was Amy who said that earlier. Something about that Excel is probably the top product that makes life easier for anybody anyway. So, I mean, I think a lot of people end up defaulting to that because it's just something that is easy, available, and it's ingrained in them, right? And so everyone starts defaulting back to Excel. And I just wanted to mention that sometimes a lot of these things can be just managed in Excel and you'll be done with it. And by the time you try and integrate something, that's 3 months down the line when you could have just done it in Excel and be done with it.
Yeah, and that's the truth. It's a good Swiss Army knife. I don't think we're going to get away from it because there's not a need to get away from it. Sometimes the simplest thing that will work is the right thing to do. But sometimes you find something transformative that is really powerful. I think, cog bias is one of those things. You can't solve that problem with Excel. You just can't do it. And it's a real problem that product teams face. And aggregating discovery data, you can automate the hell out of a lot of different portals and a lot of different systems to populate a spreadsheet with information, but then interpreting that data is a harder problem. Beth made a really good comment back in the chat and said that, and we're not going to have time to really talk about it today because we've only got 2 minutes left, but you mentioned that your product team, sales leaders, and marketing leaders really loved the product go-to-market canvas and one-sheet messaging canvas. And your point was it doesn't necessarily have to be a technology tool that is a transformative tool. It can be a conceptual tool, a way of doing things and looking at it. You dropped a blog post in there as well. We'll make sure that makes it into the notes. And thanks for sharing that. I can give you about 30 seconds to talk about that if you want to take it, and then we'll shut it down for the day.
Yeah, real quick. From a product perspective, trying to radiate what your vision and across the organization is always really important, and making sure everybody's in alignment in what they're talking about, how they're talking about it with customers, being succinct, being consistent, and making sure people understand really what the organization is trying to accomplish. So I loved as a book club as a tool. And then we really found some great alignment tools with some of the frameworks that were in there. I just called out 2 and I pulled them up. I mean, they're just some really nice canvases for you to kind of work through. But that was something that as an organization, we really needed. So because we had all these new innovations coming out and we really needed some value message consistency in our storytelling and how we're trying to sell it essentially. So anyway, it was more of a process versus outside of a new technical tool. AI is great, and I would love to see it fix all of our problems. But at the same, we still are trying to tell a story, and there's still a human that is at the other end of the phone.
Thank you. And I think I think it'd be great to talk more in depth about that. I'd love to hear more about it. Especially those canvases. I'm not super familiar with them, so I'd love to see them. Thanks everybody. But yeah, that Loved was a great book. And for those of you who are part of our community, we have a recording of the session where Martina came and spoke about that book. And not only was that a great book, Martina is just a great mentor and a person to have in your network. She's extremely accessible and approachable. She holds office hours on a regular basis for anybody to join and come ask questions to. Highly recommend getting to know Martina Lashenko and reading her book Loved from the Silicon Valley Product Group if you haven't. So there you go. That wraps us up for today and for 2023. It has been a great year with all of you. I want to thank you for being part of the Product Coffee community. Next year, we'll be back with a whole bunch of new stuff, a whole bunch of new workshops, a whole bunch of new content. And the challenge I want to give to each and every one of you, this community gets stronger when we add to it. Every week, reach out to your network and don't just post. I mean, yes, please post about us, but reach out to your network and say, hey, I think you would really benefit from being a part of this community, and we would benefit from having your voice here. It's that personal invitation is the way communities are built. And if you love this community and want to see it grow and evolve and do more, the part that you can most do is make sure that you personally invite everyone that you can think of in your network to join us next year. Until then, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. And if you celebrate nothing, just celebrate the joy of the world. And we'll miss you, but we'll see you next year. Some of you will see Thursday night. Can't wait for that. And have a great day and a great week and a great rest of the year. And Happy New Year. Bye-bye.